Hey everyone, it's Gerald back at again with another video. In this video, I'm going to go over blockbuster news in which we got Novo, Nordisk, and HIMS, which just ended their nasty legal feud with a surprise partnership to sell obesity drugs together once again here. HIMS stock shot up over 40% and Novo Nordisk with about a 2 to 3% jump. Of course, they trade in different market caps, but HIMS being a main beneficiary, which I'm going to be going over in this video here. So if you're into healthcare investing or invested into these companies specifically, or you're into the GLP-1 boom, this ultimately changes the landscape and changes a lot of things here. So I'm going to do a deep dive into what happened, why it matters, as well as the ripple effects from this partnership here. All right, so before we go deep into that, we need to rewind back. Back in April 2025, these two actually teamed up together. Novo bundled their Wegovy medication with the HIMS partnership to make weight loss drugs super accessible through everyone through telehealth. It was a smart move for both, right? Where both are benefiting, right? HIMS being able to supply an official GLP-1 medication, and Novo having a main distributor with over millions of subscribers here, right? But then June hits, and Novo essentially pulls the plug, saying HIMS was pushing compounded semaglutide knockoffs in a deceptive manner. HIMS stock tanked about 35% overnight, and then fast forward to February 2026, Novo sues HIMS for patent infringement because HIMS launched a cheap $49 copycat versions. Tensions were essentially really high, and just like that, on March 6th, Bloomberg and Reuters reports that they're reconciling here. Novo will now sell real Wegovy and Ozempic directly through the HIMS app as well as their platform here. And the official announcement is going to be set for Monday. And right now, everything's up into the air. We have Novo CEO who is neither confirming nor denying it. All he stated that they are in talks with platforms to distribute their medications here. But the announcement's set for Monday. We're going to see what happens and how that unfolds, but it's going to be really interesting these next couple of trading days because of the whole short interest that's been going on with HIMS being one of the highest stocks with the highest short interest, and essentially creating a lot of people who are going to cover and create a massive move up for the stock, which has already happened. The stock shot up over 40%. We're going to see if history is going to be made, and a historic move to the size of potentially GameStop is potentially going to be made here with the back of this recent positive catalyst here. So breaking it down for HIMS, this is essentially a game changer, right? They've been riding that weight loss wave with that segment driving over 50% of their Q4 growth last year. But compounds were essentially risky. You had the FDA that were warning them every single time they essentially were creating a copycat, as well as the lawsuits from Novo Nordisk, right? But this partnership here shows that that legal overhang is a thing of the past potentially here, right? Now they've got a legitimate access to FDA-approved branded drugs, right? So this ultimately means stable revenue, happier subscribers, over 1.5 million subscribers, and a path to a 2.7 to 2.9 billion guidance for 2026 that looks a lot more stronger, right? Analysts are now already bumping forecasts to 3.3 billion for 2028 with about 18% growth here. After a drastic drawdown in the stock, valuations come into play and fundamentals matter, and that's why you're seeing a big short covering in the stock now currently, right? And for Novo Nordisk, it's all about scale without the hassle. They've got about 39% of the global GLP-1 market, but Eli Lilly's at 60%. So Novo ignores a lot of the cash pay patients who don't have insurance coverage. HIMS now opens that door direct to consumer, no middlemen, lower marketing costs, and plus it protects their patients while essentially ramping up volume against any price pressure here. So essentially both sides win here. Markets, of course, loved it, right? You see HIMS going up or exploding 40% in the after hours. You had Novo Nordisk up about 2 to 3%. So now I want to take a deep dive into the obesity market and their total addressable market here, right? Right now, it's headed to $130 billion by 2030 with 25 million potential United States users alone. This deal now squeezes compounding pharmacies hard, especially as the FDA has a bunch of shortages and enforcement essentially ramps up in terms of the generic medications here. So ultimately, I want to take a quick look at the landscape here. We have Novo Nordisk, which has about a 39% GLP-1 share, and effectively now they have faster DTC growth, direct-to-consumer growth, as well as IP protection, the intellectual property protection. We have Eli Lilly, who has about 60% of the GLP-1 share, which now has increased competition in this space, right? And then we have HIMS, which is emerging in the GLP-1 atmosphere here, which is now going to have accelerated revenue towards that 3.3 billion that they were essentially guiding for. From a patient perspective, this is massive, right? Wegovy lists at over $1,300 a month, but bundling it with HIMS could drop effective costs and make it as simple as an app prescription as well as a home delivery. So there's no more sketchy online compounds with safety issues or questions, and this prioritizes proven efficacy here. So just looking ahead for HIMS fundamentals here, HIMS isn't just a GLP-1 medication. They got steady hair loss, they got mental health, they got sex pills essentially. This deal essentially diversifies them safely and fuels for their international expansion, right? And Novo solidifies its lead as next-gen orals as combos essentially roll out, right? The bull case for this, they capture a chunk of those 25 million users, the risk being supply chain hiccups as well as just federal government in terms of reducing the pharmaceutical cost as well as maybe even pushing generics, which doesn't seem the case. It seems like every single time generics get pushed, you have the FDA pretty much backing them down, right? So ultimately, this opportunity potentially screams opportunity in a $1 trillion health shift here. So Novo and HIMS turning from rivals to essentially partners could reshape this obesity landscape here. You have better access, you have smarter distribution, and you essentially have huge growth potential here. So what do you guys think? Are you guys bullish on both, bullish on one? How does this news sort of impact you guys in your investments? I personally have a stake into Novo Nordisk here. Let me know what your thoughts are, but I'm gonna go take a deep dive into the company's technicals now. All right, so I have HIMS pulled up on the daily time frame here. The stock is currently now sitting roughly around the $22. It doesn't show because I don't have the 4-hour time frame here, but it's sitting just right at prior supply here. Last time we were in the $22, $23 range. That was our major supply zone now, and we are back reclaiming this area here. The stock needs to essentially reclaim this spot around here and essentially make a push forward. Of course, there's a lot of overhead resistance now, where the stock has the 50 simple moving average right above it. But leading up into this, you saw the stock was sitting at a strong volume point of control here. Huge volume point of control. You had the Fibonacci retracement, right at golden retracement for a move up, a third wave move up, which seems to be roughly around these areas here. We need confirmation on Monday, but you are sitting in a major supply zone. So I would not be looking into rushing into an entry for HIMS stock currently here. For Novo Nordisk on the monthly time frame, we caught the RSI divergence that was happening on the monthly time frame, right? From lower lows, higher lows from this standpoint here, different inflections from the monthly time frame that ultimately supported that sellers were weakening. And of course, we found support roughly around that 200 simple moving average. And on the daily time frame, we're currently sitting at around $39, reclaiming this prior level here. If I'm drawing a Fibonacci retracement from prior high here to this low here, if the stock were to have some level of bounce, my point of interest is roughly around this zone here, roughly around this $43 level to $41, which is roughly around this golden retracement before a potential stagnation around this area here. Or you get a sustained bounce and maybe towards this $45, which would equate to about 78.6 retracement from that, right? But ultimately, we're seeing positive news, positive momentum in a stock that essentially capitulated, sitting at very oversold RSIs on the daily, the weekly, as well as a monthly here. So everything's aligning for a potential big move up for Novo Nordisk. We'll see how things unfold. But yeah, that's my fundamental as well as technical overview for Novo as well as HIMS partnership here. If you guys have any other stocks you guys want me to sort of uncover, drop them down below. And as always, happy trading, guys.